I was standing in our apartment in Seattle when Emily, my wife of 15 years, threw in, "Jake, I'm going on a date tonight." The glass of whiskey cracked in my hand, blood dripping onto the floor. Her cold smile promised a storm. But when she walked out, I saw in her bag the keys to someone else's house and a note. "Don't wait." That night, I realized that this was not just a betrayal, but a game in which I had to uncover her dirty secrets before she destroyed me. My name's Jake Miller. I'm 38, an architect living in Seattle, and up until February 25th, 2025, I thought I had a pretty damn good life. 15 years of marriage to Emily, a sharp-witted marketing exec, a cozy condo in Capitol Hill, and a 6-year-old daughter, Kate, who's the light of my world. That night, I'd come home from the firm with a bottle of Maker's Mark tucked under my arm, figuring we'd unwind together after a long week. The rain was drumming against the windows, a typical Seattle evening, and I was already picturing us sprawled on the couch, her feet in my lap, the TV humming in the background. But the second I stepped through the door, I knew something was off. Emily was in the living room, standing by the floor-to-ceiling window that overlooked the slick, neon-lit streets below. She wasn't in her usual sweats or that faded UW hoodie she loved. No, she was dressed to kill, black dress, tight as a second skin, hugging every curve, the hem barely grazing her thighs. Her dark hair was swept up, a few strands teasing her neck, and she held a glass of Chardonnay, like it was a prop in some noir film. I stopped dead, the bottle still in my hand, and let out a low whistle. "Hot date tonight," I joked, expecting her to roll her eyes or toss back some sarcastic quip. She always had a sharp tongue, part of why I fell for her. But she didn't laugh. She turned, slow and deliberate, her hazel eyes locking onto mine with an intensity that made my stomach twist. "Yeah, Jake," she said, her voice smooth as glass. "I'm going on a date. Tonight. Don't wait up." The words hit me like a freight train. My grip tightened on the bottle, and I felt the glass creak under my fingers. "What the hell are you talking about?" I managed my throat dry. She took a sip of her wine, casual as if she'd just told me she was grabbing coffee with a friend. "I need some excitement, Jake. 15 years is a long time. I'm not leaving you. I just want something more. You'll get it, right?" I didn't get it. My brain short-circuited, replaying her words like a busted record. The bottle slipped from my hand, hit the hardwood, and shattered, amber liquid pooling around my boots. I barely noticed the sting as a shard nicked my palm, blood welling up in a thin line. "This a joke," I rasped, stepping forward, my voice louder now. "You're my wife, Emily. What's this bullshit about a date?" Her lips curved into a smile, cold, almost amused, like she'd rehearsed this moment. "It's not a joke. I'm 37, Jake. I've still got it, and I want to feel that rush again. You're steady, reliable. I love that. But I need this." She set her glass down on the coffee table with a soft clink and grabbed her clutch from the couch. I stood there, rooted to the spot, the room spinning as she moved toward the door. My heart hammered in my chest, a mix of rage and disbelief churning inside me. "Who is he?" I demanded, my voice cracking. She paused, one hand on the doorknob, and glanced back over her shoulder. "Doesn't matter. It's not about him. It's about me." And then she was gone, the door slamming shut with a finality that echoed in my skull. The condo fell silent, save for the rain and the faint drip of bourbon soaking into the floorboards. I don't know how long I stood there, staring at the door, blood dripping from my hand onto the mess I'd made. 5 minutes? 10? My mind raced, tried to piece it together. Was this some midlife crisis? A cry for attention? We'd had our rough patches. Every couple does, but nothing like this. I thought we were solid. Hell, just last week she'd kissed me goodbye before work, whispering, "Love you, Jake," like it meant something. Now she was out there, dolled up for some bastard, and I was left here like a damn fool. But then I saw it, her clutch. She'd grabbed it in a hurry, and something had slipped out, tumbling onto the couch cushion. A set of keys, not ours, with a sleek silver fob I didn't recognize, and a folded scrap of paper. My pulse spiked as I crossed the room, snatching them up. The keys felt heavy, foreign, and the paper crinkled as I unfolded it. Scrawled in her handwriting, "Don't wait." No name, no address, just those 2 words staring up at me like a taunt. I flipped the paper over, nothing. But the keys, they weren't for our building, our car, or her office. They belonged somewhere else. To someone else. My gut screamed at me to do something. anything. I could have sat there, drowning in whiskey and self-pity, but that wasn't me. Not tonight. I grabbed my jacket, still damp from the walk home, and shoved the keys into my pocket. The blood on my hand smeared across the fabric, but I didn't care. I had to know where she was going, who she was meeting. This wasn't just a date. Those keys and that note meant something bigger, something she didn't want me to see. I yanked open the door and stepped into the rain, the cold biting at my skin as I headed for my truck parked 2 blocks down. The streets were a blur of headlights and wet asphalt as I drove, my mind spinning with questions. Emily wasn't impulsive. She planned everything, down to the last detail. This date wasn't some spur-of-the-moment fling. It was calculated. I thought about the past few months, her late nights at the office, the vague excuses, the way she'd started locking her phone. I'd chalked it up to stress, to her climbing the ladder at that fancy marketing firm downtown. But now it clicked. She'd been building toward this, and I'd been too blind to notice. I didn't have a plan, just a burning need to see it for myself. I cruised past her usual haunts, her office in Belltown, that wine bar she loved on First Avenue, but no sign of her. Then I remembered the clutch, the way she'd clutched it like it was her lifeline. Whatever she was hiding, it tied back to those keys. I pulled them out, squinting at the fob under the dim glow of a streetlight. No logo, no markings, just a small, engraved number, 7. A building? A room? My jaw tightened. I wasn't just chasing my wife. I was chasing a secret. The rain pounded harder as I turned onto Pine Street, my wipers slashing through the downpour. That's when I saw her, her silhouette unmistakable, even in the storm. She stepped out of the cab in front of a nondescript brick building in Pioneer Square, one of those shadowy corners of the city tourists don't touch. A neon sign flickered above the door, too faded to read, but the vibe screamed trouble. She didn't look back as she slipped inside, her dress catching the light for a split second before the darkness swallowed her. I parked across the street, my truck half hidden by a dumpster, and killed the engine. My breath fogged in the cab as I watched the door. A bouncer stood outside now, arms crossed, scanning the street. This wasn't a restaurant or a bar. It was something else, something underground. My hand brushed the keys in my pocket, and a chill ran down my spine. Whatever Emily was up to, it wasn't just about excitement. She'd stepped into a world I didn't know, and those keys were my only clue. I gripped the steering wheel, knuckles white, and made a choice. I wasn't going home until I had answers. The rain hammered my truck's windshield as I sat parked across from that shadowy brick building in Pioneer Square, my eyes glued to the door Emily had disappeared through. The neon sign above flickered, half dead, buzzing like a dying insect, but I could just make out the word Eclipse etched in jagged red letters. It wasn't a bar I'd ever heard of, and Seattle's my city. I know its pulse. This place reeked of secrets, the kind you don't stumble into without a price. The bouncer, a slab of muscle in a leather jacket, stood like a sentry, his gaze sweeping the street. I slouched lower in my seat, the keys I'd taken from Emily's clutch digging into my thigh through my pocket. Number 7. Whatever it meant, it was my only thread to pull, and I wasn't letting it go. I'd followed her here on instinct, but now what? Storm the place like some jealous husband in a bad movie? I wasn't armed, wasn't trained for this. I draw buildings for a living, not chase shadows. But the image of her in that dress, her cold, calculated don't wait up, burned in my skull. 15 years of marriage, and she'd tossed it aside like an old coat. No, this wasn't just a fling. Those keys, that note, they were pieces of a puzzle, and I needed to see the whole picture. I cracked the window, letting the damp air snap me out of my haze, and decided to wait. She'd come out eventually, and when she did, I'd follow her to the truth. 20 minutes ticked by, the rain a relentless drumbeat. My hand throbbed where the glass had cut it, blood crusted over now, stinging every time I flexed my fingers. Then the door swung open, and there she was, Emily, stepping into the storm, her hair glistening wet. But she wasn't alone. A man followed her, tall and lean, in a tailored suit that screamed money. His dark hair was slicked back, and even from across the street, I could feel the arrogance rolling off him. They didn't touch, but the way he leaned in, murmuring something that made her laugh, twisted a knife in my gut. I knew that laugh, soft, unguarded, the one she used to save for me. I squinted through the downpour. That face, I'd seen it before. Ryan Kessler, her boss at the marketing firm. The guy was a shark, all charm and sharp edges, the kind who'd sell his mother for a corner office. I met him at a company gala last year, his handshake too firm, his smile too wide. Emily had gushed about his vision for weeks after, but I'd brushed it off. Now, watching them duck under an awning, him lighting her cigarette like some old-school Casanova, I felt like a fool. Was this the date? Her damn boss? Before I could process it, another figure emerged. A guy in a black hoodie, face hidden under the brim, hands jammed in his pockets. He moved fast, cutting through the rain to join them. Ryan handed him something, a thick envelope, the kind you don't pass around in public unless it's trouble. Emily glanced around, her posture stiffening, then took it from the guy and slipped it into her clutch. My breath caught. What the hell was she into? This wasn't dinner and drinks. This was a deal, a payoff, something dirty. The hoodie guy nodded once and vanished back into the club, leaving Emily and Ryan alone again. She said something sharp, her hand slicing the air, and he smirked, stepping closer. Too close. I fumbled for my phone, hands shaking as I snapped a blurry shot through the windshield. Evidence. I'd need it, whatever this was. But then my eyes snagged on her clutch again, the way she gripped it like it held her life. Those keys. That note. I had no more. I waited until they climbed into a sleek black Audi parked a block down. Ryan driving, Emily in the passenger seat, and tailed them, keeping my lights off to stay unseen. The streets were a maze of wet reflections, but I knew Seattle's backroads like my own blueprints. They didn't spot me. The Audi pulled into a parking garage near the waterfront, one of those upscale ones with security cameras and valets. I couldn't follow without being seen, so I parked on a side street and hoofed it, the rain soaking through my jacket. By the time I reached the garage, they were gone. Elevators, probably. But her clutch was my lifeline. I'd seen her leave it on the Audi's dash when she got out, distracted by Ryan's hand on her back. The car was still there, unattended. My heart pounded as I crept closer, the fob in my pocket buzzing with possibility. Could those keys fit? I didn't have time to think it through. I popped the lock with a trick I'd learned from a locksmith buddy years ago, slid into the driver's seat, and grabbed the clutch. Inside, I found her phone, unlocked, thank God, still set to Kate's birthday, 0618. I scrolled fast, adrenaline spiking. Text from Ryan, Fairmont, 8 p.m., we're the red one. That was last week. Another, he's clueless. Keep it that way. My stomach lurched. Clueless? Me? Then a third, from an unknown number. Payments due. Tell Kessler to keep his end, or the deal's off. Payment? Deal. I kept digging, hard in my throat, and found a photo, Emily and Ryan in a hotel room, her in lingerie, him grinning like he'd won the lottery. Dated 3 months ago. 3 fucking months. But the real bomb was an email draft, unsent, buried in her trash. Cassini. $50K wired. Jay's still in the dark. He's our cover if it blows up. Cassini. Who the hell was that? And $50,000? Our savings had dipped last month. She'd said it was taxes. My hands shook as I pieced it together. She wasn't just cheating. She was running something, using me as a shield. A patsy. The keys in my pocket suddenly felt heavier. Number 7. A room? A safe? I snapped photos of the screen with my phone, every damning word, and shoved her clutch back where I found it. I had to get out before they came back. As I slipped out of the garage, tires screeched behind me, the Audi peeling out. I ducked behind a pillar, my pulse a jackhammer. They didn't see me, but I saw her face through the window. Tense, no trace of that earlier laugh. Ryan's jaw was set, his knuckles white on the wheel. Wherever they were going, it wasn't over. I stumbled back to my truck, soaked and reeling. Emily wasn't just stepping out. She was neck-deep in a lie, and I was tangled in it. Those keys burned in my pocket, a ticking clock. I didn't know what 7 unlocked, but I'd find out. This wasn't about love anymore. It was about survival. I drove back to our condo in Capitol Hill with my hands trembling on the wheel, the rain-slick streets of Seattle blurring past me like a nightmare I couldn't wake from. Emily's phone revelations churned in my head. Ryan, Cassini, $50,000 wired from our account, and me as their cover. The keys with the number 7 rattled in my pocket, mocking me with every turn. I'd gone from a blindsided husband to a man holding a live grenade, and I didn't even know how to pull the pin. By the time I stumbled through the door, soaked to the bone, it was past midnight. The condo felt like a tomb, silent, hollow, the shattered bourbon bottle still staining the floor. I needed answers, and I wasn't waiting for Emily to hand them over. I poured a shot from a spare bottle in the kitchen, the burns steadying my nerves, and dialed the only guy I knew who could handle this mess. Mark Ridley. He was an ex-cop turned private eye, a grizzled bastard with a voice like gravel and a reputation for digging up dirt no one else could. I'd met him years ago on a job. Some developer needed intel on a shady contractor, and Mark had delivered. He picked up on the third ring, groggy but alert. "Jake, it's damn near 1 a.m. What's the emergency?" I didn't waste time. My wife's screwing me over, literally and otherwise. I've got keys, a name, Cassini, and proof she's moving money. I need you to tail her, figure out what the hell she's into. A pause, then a low whistle. Sounds like a shitstorm. I'm in. Meet me tomorrow, 8 a.m., my office in Belltown. Bring everything. Sleep didn't come that night. I paced, replaying every word from her phone, every glance she'd shared with Ryan outside that club. Eclipse. The envelope. The hoodie guy. At dawn, I showered off the rain and blood, bandaged my hand, and headed to Mark's dingy office, a hole in the wall above a dive bar. He was waiting, coffee in hand, his scarred face creased with a smirk. I dumped the keys, my phone photos, and the whole story on his desk. He scrolled through the shots of Emily's texts and emails, his eyes narrowing. Cassini's bad news, Jake. Tony Cassini runs half the underground gambling and extortion rackets in the Northwest. If your wife's tangled with him, she's not just cheating, she's playing with fire. He tapped the keys. And these? Could be a drop point, a locker, a room. I'll find out. Give me 3 days. 3 days felt like a lifetime, but I nodded. There's more. Someone's threatening my daughter, Kate. She's 6. A note under my door last night. Talk. And she's gone. I slid it across the desk, a crumpled scrap I'd found after getting home. Mark's smirk vanished. That changes things. I'll move fast. You keep Kate safe, get her out of town if you can. And don't do anything stupid. I didn't argue. I called my mom in a coma, made up some story about a work trip, and drove Kate there that morning. Her little arms hugged me tight, oblivious to the chaos. "Love you, Daddy," she chirped. I forced a smile, my chest aching. "Love you too, kiddo." Mark worked fast. By day 3, he met me at a diner on the edge of the city, his trench coat dripping from the relentless drizzle. He slid a folder across the table, his voice low. "Your wife's a piece of work. She's been meeting Cassini's crew at Eclipse twice a week. Caught her on camera handing over cash. That $50,000? Wired to an offshore account tied to a shell company Cassini uses. Looks like she's paying to keep something quiet. Maybe blackmail, maybe a debt. Ryan's in on it, funneling funds through her firm. And here's the kicker. They're using your name on the paperwork. If this blows up, you're the fall guy." My stomach dropped. "Me?" Mark nodded. "Tax records, bank transfers, all point to Jake Miller. She's framed you clean." I gripped the table, my bandaged hand throbbing. "What about the keys?" He flipped a page. Photos of a storage unit off Alaskan Way. Unit 7. Matches the fob. I scoped it, locked tight, but there's activity. Guys in and out, moving boxes. Could be cash, could be worse. I bet my left nut it's tied to Cassini. I stared at the grainy shots of Emily outside the unit, her face half hidden by a hood. "So she's what? Laundering money? For how long?" Mark shrugged. "Months, at least. She's good, Jake. Smart. But she's scared, keeps looking over her shoulder. Cassini's not the forgiving type. That night, I couldn't sit still. Kate was safe, but I wasn't. If Emily and Ryan were pinning this on me, I needed leverage, something to turn the tables. I grabbed a flashlight, a crowbar from my toolbox, and drove to Alaskan Way. The storage lot was a ghost town after dark, chain-link fences rattling in the wind off Puget Sound. Unit 7 loomed ahead, a rusted metal door under a flickering bulb. My pulse hammered as I tested the keys. The fob clicked and the lock popped open. Inside, the air was stale, thick with the smell of damp cardboard and something metallic. Boxes lined the walls, unmarked, but one caught my eye. Half open, stuffed with cash, hundreds bundled tight. Underneath, a ledger, dates, amounts, initials. Eclipse, Emily Kessler. And there, in black ink, JM, $50,000, February 15th, 25. My name, my coffin. I snapped photos, hands shaking, when headlights swept the lot. Tires crunched gravel outside. I killed the flashlight, ducked behind a stack, and held my breath. The door creaked open, and boots hit the concrete. 2 pairs. A voice, low and rough. She said, "It's all here. Check it." Another, sharper, "Hurry up. Cassini's pissed. She's late again." They rummaged, cursing, inches from me. Sweat stung my eyes as I clutched the crowbar. If they found me, I was dead. But then a phone buzzed. "Yeah, it's her. She's at the club. Says Kessler's got the rest." The boots retreated, the door slammed, and the car peeled out. I exhaled, lungs burning, and bolted, the ledger tucked under my jacket. Back in my truck, I pored over it. Pages of transactions, millions flowing through shell accounts, all linked to me on paper. Emily wasn't just cheating. She was burying me alive. The threat to Kate wasn't a bluff. It was Cassini's leash. I called Mark, voice hoarse. "It's worse than we thought. She's setting me up to take the fall, and they're on to her." He swore. "Get that ledger to me. We're cracking this now." As I hung up, my phone pinged, a text from an unknown number. "You're digging, Miller. Stop, or Kate pays." My blood ran cold. This wasn't a game anymore. It was war. The ledger felt like a brick against my chest as I sped back to Capitol Hill. The Seattle skyline, a jagged blur through the rain-streaked windshield. My truck's engine growled, matching the storm raging inside me. Emily had framed me. $50K pinned to my name, millions more in Cassini's dirty empire, all ready to collapse on my head. The text still burned in my mind. "Stop, or Kate pays." My 6-year-old daughter, safe with my mom in Tacoma for now, but how long could that last? I'd stumbled into a hornet's nest, and every move stung deeper. The keys with the number 7 sat heavy in my pocket, a lifeline turned noose. I had proof now, the ledger, the photos, but proof was useless if I couldn't strike first. I met Mark at his Belltown office at 3 a.m., the city asleep except for us and the shadows we were chasing. His desk lamp cast harsh lines across his scarred face as he flipped through the ledger, muttering curses. "This is dynamite, Jake." Dates, amounts, accounts, Cassini's whole operation laid bare. Emily's initials are all over it, but your name's the signature on the fall. She's been cooking this for months. He tapped a page. "Look, last entry, 2 days ago. $200,000 drop at Eclipse." She's still in deep. I clenched my fists, the cut on my hand pulsing under the bandage. "And Kate?" "That text." Mark cut me off, his voice steel. "We've got leverage now. I've got a contact at the FBI. Ex-partner. Owes me. We can bury Cassini and her with this. But we need her next move." That move came faster than I expected. At 4 a.m., my phone rang. Emily's number. I stared at it, dread pooling in my gut, then answered. Her voice was silk, laced with ice. "Jake, we need to talk. Now. Meet me at home." No apology, no softness, just a command. I glanced at Mark, who nodded, mouthing, "Record it." I hit the button on my app and drove back, the ledger stashed under the seat. When I walked into the condo, she was there, perched on the couch in that same black dress, a tumbler of my bourbon in her hand. The room stank of betrayal and her perfume. "You're up late," she said, smirking like this was a game. I didn't sit. "Cut the crap, Emily. What's this about?" She stood, slow and deliberate, crossing to me. Her heels clicked on the hardwood, each step a countdown. "You've been busy, haven't you? Snooping, chasing me around?" Her eyes flicked to my bandaged hand, then back to my face. "Here's the deal. You play by my rules, or you lose everything. Kate, the house, your precious little life. I'll take it all in the divorce. Ryan's got lawyers who'll shred you." My jaw tightened. "Rules? You mean covering for your money laundering?" "For Cassini." Her smirk faltered, just for a second, then hardened. "You don't know what you're talking about." I pulled out my phone, the photos of the ledger glowing on the screen. "This says I do. Your initials, my name, $50K you stole from us, millions more for your boss. I've got it all, Emily. One call, and the FBI's at your door." Her face went white, but she recovered fast, stepping closer, her breath hot on my cheek. "You won't. You love me too much. And Kate, she'd hate you for ruining her mom." She reached for my arm, but I jerked back, shoving the phone in my pocket. "Love's dead. You're a liar and a thief. What's in Unit 7? Cash. Blood money." Her eyes flashed fear, then fury. "You broke in? You idiot." Before she could finish, the door crashed open. 2 men stormed in, hoodies, gloves, one with a gun glinting in the dim light. Cassini's muscle. Hands up, Miller. The armed one barked, his voice a rasp. Emily spun, her cool cracking. What the hell? The second guy grabbed her arm, twisting it. Boss says you're late. Where's the drop? She yanked free, snarling. Tell Cassini it's coming. Kessler's got it. I saw my chance. She's lying, I said, loud and clear, the recorder still rolling. It's in Unit 7, Ledger 2. She's setting me up to take the fall. The gunman's eyes flicked to me, then her. That true. Emily's glare could have cut steel. He's bluffing. But the doubt was there, and I pressed it. Check her phone. Text from Ryan. She's screwing you all. The second guy hesitated, then snatched her clutch from the couch, ripping it open. Her phone tumbled out, and he scrolled, his face darkening. She's right. Kessler's got the cash. Cassini's gonna flip. The gunman swung the barrel toward her. You're done, lady. She lunged for the door, but he caught her, slamming her against the wall. I ducked behind the couch as he barked. Where's Kessler now? Eclipse, she gasped, pinned. He's there. Tonight's the drop. The gunman nodded to his partner. We're going. Miller, you're lucky for now. They dragged her out, her heels scraping the floor, her curses fading into the hall. I stayed low, heart pounding, until silence fell. The recorder caught it all, her confession, their threats. I grabbed the ledger from the truck and bolted to Mark's, my mind racing. She'd slipped her grip, but not mine. I didn't sleep. At dawn, Mark played the recording, grinning like a wolf. This is gold, Jake. FBI's moving on Eclipse tonight. Cassini's crew won't know what hit him. But I couldn't shake the image of her at the club, the drop going down. I had to see it end. Against Mark's orders, I drove to Pioneer Square, parking a block from Eclipse. The rain had stopped, leaving the air thick and still. I slipped through an alley, the ledger tucked under my jacket, and peeked through a grimy window. Inside, chaos, shouts, flashing lights, bodies moving fast. Ryan was there, a briefcase in hand, yelling at a man in a mask. Emily burst in, disheveled, her dress torn. It's Miller. He's got everything, she screamed. Then it happened. Gunshots cracked the air, glass shattered, and the crowd scattered. Ryan dropped, blood pooling, the briefcase spilling cash. Emily froze, then ran, vanishing into the night as sirens wailed closer. I stumbled back, the ledger slipping from my hands into the mud. FBI? Cassini's retaliation? I didn't know who fired first, but she was gone, and I was still standing. My phone buzzed. Mark, feds are in. Stay clear. Too late. I'd walked into the fire, and the fork in the road was behind me. Whatever came next, I'd face it head on. The mud sucked at my boots as I staggered away from Eclipse, the ledger half buried in the alley where I'd dropped it during the chaos. Gunshots still echoed in my ears. The image of Ryan crumpling to the floor burned into my brain, blood spreading like ink across the club's polished wood. Emily's scream, "It's Miller," rang louder than the sirens closing in. I'd seen her bolt, a shadow swallowed by the Seattle night, and now I was here, alone, clutching my phone with Mark's text. Feds are in. Stay clear. Too late for that. The rain had stopped, but the air hung heavy, thick with the promise of reckoning. I scooped up the ledger, its pages damp and smeared, and ran for my truck a block away. Whatever had gone down in there, it wasn't over, not for me. I drove to Mark's office in Belltown, the city waking up around me, delivery trucks rumbling, streetlights flickering off. My hands shook as I handed him the ledger and the recording from my phone. She's gone, I said, voice raw. Ryan's dead, shot in the club. Feds or Cassini, I don't know. But she ratted me out before she ran. Mark's eyes gleamed as he played the audio. Emily's voice, sharp and panicked, admitting the drop, pinning it on Ryan, the threats from Cassini's men. This is enough, he said, slamming a fist on the desk. FBI's raiding Eclipse now. Caught half of Cassini's crew in the act. Your wife's toast, Jake. That ledger ties her to millions in dirty cash, and this. He tapped my phone. Her own words bury her. By noon, the news hit. Seattle underground bust. Crime ring collapses. Cassini's name splashed across every screen, his mugshot grim and unshaven. Ryan Kessler, prominent marketing exec, dead in a botched deal. Emily was listed as a person of interest, missing. I sat in Mark's office, a coffee going cold in my hands, staring at the TV. The feds had the ledger. I'd handed it over through Mark's contact, and my name was clear. They traced the $50,000 back to her, not me, and the forged signatures unraveled fast. But Kate, my daughter's safety gnawed at me. The threat still lingered, a ghost I couldn't shake. She's safe, Mark assured me. Tacoma's locked down, my guy's watching your mom's place. Cassini's too busy running to care about you now. Days bled into a week. I moved into a cheap motel near Lake Union. The condo, too, tainted a stomach. Kate stayed with my mom. No way I'd risk bringing her back until Emily was caught. I kept my phone off, avoiding the flood of calls, reporters, co-workers, even Emily's sister begging for answers I didn't have. Mark updated me daily. Cassini's empire was crumbling, arrests piling up, but Emily was a phantom. She's smart, he said. Probably halfway to Canada by now. I nodded, but something told me she wouldn't run far. Not yet. She'd built this web, and I'd been her anchor. She'd come back to cut the last thread. That hunch hit paid her 10 days later. I was grabbing coffee at a diner on Aurora Avenue when the door chimed, and there she was, Emily, stepping in like a storm cloud. Her black dress was swapped for jeans and a hoodie. Her hair pulled back, but those hazel eyes still cut through me. No makeup, no swagger, just exhaustion and desperation. She slid into the booth across from me, hands trembling as she clasped them on the table. "Jake," she whispered, voice cracking. "I messed up. I am sorry." I stared, my coffee mug frozen halfway to my mouth. "Sorry?" After framing me, threatening Kate, running with Cassini's blood money? "You're sorry," I said, low and cold. "Ryan's dead. Cassini's finished. You've got nothing left, and now you're here." She leaned in, tears welling. "I didn't mean for it to go this far. Ryan pushed me into it, blackmail, debts. I thought I could control it, protect us. I never wanted you hurt. Lies slick as oil." I set the mug down hard. "Protect us? You wired $50,000 from our savings. You put my name on a guillotine. Kate's life was on the line. Your daughter." Her face crumpled, but I saw the flicker, calculation behind the tears. "I can fix it," she pleaded. "I've got cash stashed, enough to start over. You, me, Kate. We can disappear." I laughed, bitter and sharp. "Disappear? The feds have your voice, your prints, your whole damn playbook. You're a fugitive, Emily." She reached for my hand, but I pulled back, standing. "You're done." Her mask slipped thin, fear turned to fury. "You'll regret this, Jake. I know things they'll kill for." She bolted up, but I grabbed her wrist, my grip iron. "Seat, you're not running again." She twisted free, shoving me back, and darted for the door. I lunged after her, but a car screeched up outside. Black SUV, tinted windows. Two men in suits jumped out, badges flashing. "FBI." "Emily Kessler, stop." She froze, hands up, her eyes darting to me, pleading, then resigned. They cuffed her, her head bowed as they read her rights. One agent, a wiry guy with a buzz cut, nodded at me. "You Miller? Good work. She's been on our radar since the bust." I watched them shove her into the SUV. Her last glance, a mix of hate and defeat. The diner door swung shut, and I sank back into the booth, adrenaline draining out of me. It was over, or so I thought. A month later, I moved to a new place in Bellevue, smaller, quieter, closer to Kate's school once I brought her back. Life was steadying, the scars fading. Then Lisa Thompson walked in, my old high school buddy, blonde and tough, who tracked me down after the news broke. "Heard you took down a crime lord," she teased over beers at a bar near Lake Washington. I smirked, more like I survived one. She'd been there that night, at Eclipse, a bartender caught in the crossfire who dragged me out when the shooting started. "You owe me," she said, grinning. I did. We started seeing each other, her warmth thawing the ice Emily left behind. One night, as we walked the lakefront, my phone buzzed, a withheld number. I answered, cautious. Emily's voice, faint, crackled through. "Jake, they've got me in protective custody. Cassini's still out there, free. He knows you talked." My blood chilled. "You're lying." A laugh, weak but venomous. "Check your truck." "Under the seat. He left you a gift." The line died. I sprinted to the lot, Lisa trailing me, and yanked open the door. There, taped beneath the driver's seat, was a photo. Me, Kate, Lisa, snapped days ago. Scrawled in red, "Next time." Cassini wasn't done. Emily's arrest hadn't ended it. It had lit a fuse. I looked at Lisa, her face pale but fierce. "We'll fight," she said. I nodded, gripping her hand. The final blow wasn't hers. It was mine to deliver.